Leo had always known he didn't belong, but the moment he stepped into Vincent Moretti's world, everything he thought he knew about survival began to shatter. Chapter 1. The Cleaning Job. Leo had never seen anything like the mansion before. The sheer size of it, the black stone walls, the massive iron gates, it was like stepping into another world. He clutched his bag tightly, swallowing his nerves as he walked up the long driveway. It was late afternoon, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink, but Leo could barely appreciate the beauty of it all. He was focused on the job at hand, scrubbing floors, polishing furniture, making the place presentable. The mansion's interior was just as imposing as the outside. Expensive paintings hung on the walls, and gleaming chandeliers lit up the corridors like something out of a dream. But there was an oppressive atmosphere in the air, one that made Leo feel like he didn't belong. It wasn't just the house, it was the people. The first person he met was the head housekeeper, a sharp woman named Clara, who quickly briefed him on the rules of the mansion. "You'll be cleaning mostly in the servants' quarters and the hallways. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't look anyone in the eye, especially not Mr. Moretti." "Mr. Moretti?" Leo asked, but Clara didn't answer, just nodded toward the back of the house. The boss of this place, Vincent Moretti, was infamous in the underworld. A ruthless mafia boss who controlled everything in his domain with cold efficiency. Leo had heard rumors about him, but he never imagined he would meet him face to face. The first time Leo saw Vincent, he froze. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp eyes that seemed to pierce through everything. He barely acknowledged Leo, just giving him a brief, dismissive glance before retreating into his office. "That's him," Clara said, her voice low. "Stay out of his way." Leo did his best to avoid the boss in the coming days. The work was grueling but simple, and as long as he kept his head down, he wasn't bothered. But despite his efforts, Leo couldn't shake the feeling that Vincent's eyes were always on him, even when he wasn't around. It was as though the mansion itself was watching him, waiting for him to slip up. Chapter 2. A Beta's Place. Leo quickly learned that the mansion was a place of strict hierarchy, where every role was clearly defined. The alphas and omegas ruled the social structure, while betas were relegated to tasks like cleaning and menial labor. Leo had always been a beta, and in this world, it meant he was invisible, less valuable, less important. He wasn't allowed to socialize with the staff, let alone the guests. At first, the isolation didn't bother him too much. He was used to being in the background, blending into the shadows. But after a few days, the weight of his position began to suffocate him. The staff barely spoke to him, and when they did, it was with thinly veiled disdain. The other workers, mostly Omega or Alpha, were confident, self-assured, their status written all over their actions and words. But Leo had none of that. He was just a cleaner, a nameless face in the crowd. One afternoon, Leo found himself scrubbing the floors in a long, narrow hallway. The silence in the mansion was deafening, broken only by the sound of his cleaning supplies clinking as he moved. He had just finished wiping down a grand mirror when he heard a faint click behind him. His heart skipped a beat, and he turned to see Vincent standing at the far end of the hall, watching him. Leo immediately straightened up, but Vincent said nothing. The tension in the air was palpable, and Leo could feel the boss's eyes on him like a weight. He wasn't sure what to make of it. Was it a challenge? A warning? Vincent didn't say anything to him that day, but Leo couldn't shake the feeling that the man was studying him, sizing him up. Leo quickly returned to his work, trying to ignore the gnawing sensation that Vincent was watching his every move. Chapter 3. The Shift. The changes started small. At first, Leo thought it was just the stress of the job getting to him. Maybe the long hours or the strange atmosphere of the mansion had started to mess with his head. But soon, he realized it was something else entirely. One morning, Leo woke up feeling strange. He was unusually hot, as though his skin was burning from the inside out. He brushed it off as a fever or some kind of illness, But the sensation didn't go away. His senses felt heightened, his hearing sharper, his vision clearer. When he walked into the garden later that day, the smell of roses made him dizzy. He couldn't stop inhaling the scent, feeling it flood his senses in a way he had never experienced before. That night, as he cleaned the hallways, Leo caught a whiff of his own scent. It was subtle, sweet, and intoxicating. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. His scent had changed. It wasn't the neutral, unremarkable scent of a beta anymore. It was something softer, more inviting. It was Omega. Leo panicked. He knew what this meant. Omegas were rare, highly sought after. And in this mansion, Omegas were expected to either submit to the alphas or be used in ways Leo had only heard about in whispers. He couldn't let anyone find out, not Vincent, not the other staff. If they knew, he'd be thrown out, discarded like trash. He kept his head down, doing everything he could to suppress the new instincts that were bubbling up inside him. But it was becoming harder to hide. The scent clung to him, a constant reminder of the shift he couldn't control. Every time he passed someone, he could see the way they sniffed the air, their eyes narrowing, curious. It was only a matter of time before someone realized. Chapter 4. The Party. Vincent's lavish parties were legendary. Tonight, Leo had been instructed to help with the preparations. He was to stay in the background, invisible to the guests. It was a simple enough request, and Leo had no problem with it. The mansion was already buzzing with activity as the staff scrambled to get everything ready. But as the evening wore on, Leo found himself surrounded by people he didn't recognize. Powerful men and women, their eyes sharp and calculating. They moved through the rooms like predators, surveying everything around them with cold efficiency. Leo couldn't help but feel out of place, like a ghost among them. It wasn't long before a group of guests, mostly alphas and omegas, started to gather around him. One of them, a tall, dark-haired man with a sharp jawline, sniffed the air and smiled. "You're not a beta, are you?" he said with an amused grin. Leo froze. His heart raced, and for a moment he felt like he was suffocating. He didn't know what to say, how to respond. His scent, his omega scent, was out in the open now. The others began to notice it too, their eyes narrowing with interest. "Look at you," one woman purred, her voice low and seductive. "You're an omega, aren't you?" Leo's blood ran cold. His worst fear had come true. He had tried so hard to hide it, but now there was no escape. He felt exposed, vulnerable, and for the first time, truly afraid. He tried to retreat, but they closed in on him, circling like vultures. Before he could react, Vincent appeared in the doorway, his eyes scanning the scene. His gaze landed on Leo, and for a brief moment, their eyes locked. There was a flicker of something, disappointment, anger, confusion, before Vincent turned and walked away. The guests, sensing that their prey was slipping away, lost interest and dispersed, but Leo's mind was racing. He had been caught, and he didn't know what would happen next. Chapter 5. The Confrontation. The next day, Vincent called Leo into his office. The room was cold and dimly lit, the heavy curtains drawn against the sunlight. Leo's heart pounded in his chest as he stood before Vincent's desk, his head lowered in shame. "You lied to me." Vincent's voice was low, almost calm, but the anger simmered beneath the surface. Leo swallowed hard. "I didn't want to be an omega," Vincent interrupted, his eyes narrowing. "Why didn't you just tell me? Why hide it?" Leo's mind spun with fear and guilt. I thought I would be thrown out. I thought if you knew, I would lose the job." Vincent's gaze softened for a fraction of a second, but then it was gone. His eyes were cold again. "You could have trusted me." "I couldn't," Leo whispered. "You're the Mafia. I'm just a beta. I didn't think I'd stand a chance. Vincent leaned back in his chair, studying Leo with a look that sent a chill down his spine. You think I care about that? About whether you're a beta or an omega? There was a strange pause, and then Vincent added, his voice quieter, almost to himself, I should have known. Leo's throat tightened, but he stayed silent. What could he say? There was no excuse, no way to make this right. Not now. Not when everything had already unraveled. Chapter 6. Unraveling. The days that followed were tense. Leo's fear of rejection never quite went away, but something else began to stir inside him. A strange, unexpected longing. He found himself thinking about Vincent more often than he should. The way Vincent's eyes followed him, the way his voice dropped low when he spoke to him, it all made Leo's heart race. But at the same time, there was fear. Fear that Vincent would throw him out, that his feelings were irrelevant. Leo was still an omega, still a threat to the balance of power in the mansion. The tension between them was suffocating. Vincent, however, seemed to be watching him more closely now. When their paths crossed in the hallways, his gaze lingered on Leo longer than before. There was something unreadable in Vincent's expression, a flicker of something Leo couldn't identify. Leo didn't know what to make of it. He had never been good at reading people, especially someone like Vincent. But one thing was clear, Vincent was far more complicated than the ruthless boss Leo had imagined. Every time they spoke, every interaction left Leo more confused. He had expected Vincent to be angry, to throw him out, but instead, there was something softer in his eyes. Something Leo couldn't quite grasp. And with that softness, the growing attraction Leo felt for Vincent intensified. He hated himself for it, but there was no denying it. Chapter 7. Tensions rise. The days were blurring together now. Leo could barely tell one day from the next. Each morning, he woke to the same silence, the same rigid structure of his work, the same gnawing tension in the pit of his stomach. Every encounter with Vincent left him both unsettled and oddly alive. It was like he was caught between two worlds, one where he was just a lowly worker, an omega trying to hide his true identity, and the other where Vincent, the Mafia boss, seemed to see through all of his defenses. One afternoon, while Leo was polishing the grand staircase, Vincent appeared at the top of the steps, his silhouette sharp against the light from the open windows. Leo's breath caught in his throat. There was no mistaking the pull that Vincent had on him. The way he carried himself, commanding, powerful, unyielding, made Leo's heart race, even when he tried to stay distant. But he couldn't ignore the stirrings inside him. His omega instincts were waking up, uncontrollably, every time Vincent's gaze landed on him. You're late today. Vincent's voice broke through Leo's thoughts, sharp and calculating. Leo blinked, startled by the sudden attention. I'm sorry, I was just finishing up. Vincent descended the stairs slowly, his boots clicking against the marble floor, each step deliberate. When he reached the bottom, he stood just a few feet from Leo, too close for comfort. Leo fought the urge to step back, to escape the heat that seemed to radiate off the man. You've been avoiding me, Vincent said, his eyes narrowing as he studied Leo's face. Not that I mind, but there's something about you. You don't quite fit in here, do you? Leo's mouth went dry. You think I'm like the rest of them, don't you? Vincent interrupted, his tone colder now. You think I'll throw you out because you're an omega? But I'm not them. Leo was frozen in place. His thoughts raced, but his tongue felt tied. The way Vincent looked at him, it wasn't like the others. There was no sneer, no mockery, just curiosity. A deep, searching curiosity. Before Leo could respond, Vincent stepped closer, his presence enveloping him completely. The air between them felt thick, charged. Leo's pulse quickened. I could throw you out, Vincent continued, his voice soft now, almost intimate. But I won't. Not unless you give me a reason. Leo's breath hitched in his chest. What was Vincent saying? Did he mean that? Did he actually care? He didn't know how to respond, but Vincent didn't give him the chance. Without another word, he turned sharply, his coat swishing behind him as he walked toward the doors leading to his office. Keep your distance, he said over his shoulder. But don't think I won't notice if you stop trying to hide. Leo stood there, motionless, until Vincent was out of sight. His heart was pounding in his ears, his thoughts in disarray. What the hell had just happened? What was Vincent's game? Chapter 8. The Revelation. The days following that confrontation were filled with unease. Leo couldn't stop thinking about what Vincent had said. He didn't want to read too much into it, didn't want to hope for something he couldn't have. But it was becoming increasingly hard to ignore the way Vincent treated him differently. Like he was something more than just an omega, more than just a worker in his eyes. One night, after another long day of cleaning, Leo found himself standing outside the mansion, gazing at the stars. The cool night air was a welcome relief from the oppressive heat inside. He had always loved the stillness of the night, the quiet comfort of being alone with his thoughts. But tonight, there was no peace. As if on cue, Vincent appeared beside him, his presence suddenly filling the space. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there next to Leo, looking out at the dark horizon. Leo didn't dare look at him, but he could feel the weight of his gaze, the tension hanging between them like a fragile thread. "Why are you out here?" Vincent asked after a long pause, his voice almost gentle. Leo hesitated. "Just needed some air." Vincent didn't respond immediately, his eyes scanning the stars above them. "You know," he began slowly, "I've never been one for feelings. Not in the way the world expects. I built this empire by being ruthless, by staying detached. But I know what it's like to want something, someone, just out of reach." Leo's heart thudded painfully in his chest. His breath hitched, but he forced himself to stay calm. "You don't have to hide from me," Vincent continued. "I see you, Leo, all of you." Leo turned to face him then, his eyes wide with surprise. The vulnerability in Vincent's voice startled him. This wasn't the Vincent he had come to know, cold, calculating, untouchable. This was something different. "Why?" Leo asked, his voice trembling. "Why me?" Vincent's lips curled into the faintest of smiles. "I think you already know. You've always known, haven't you?" Before Leo could respond, Vincent closed the distance between them, his hand gently cupping Leo's chin, lifting his face so that their gazes locked. For a moment, neither of them moved, the air thick with anticipation. "I'm not who you think I am," Vincent whispered. "And I don't want you to hide anymore." Leo's heart was racing, his entire body trembling under the weight of Vincent's touch. All of his fears, his doubts, everything he had tried to suppress. It all came crashing down in that moment. He didn't know what to say, what to do. He only knew that he had never felt more exposed, more seen, than he did right then. Leo started, but his voice faltered. Vincent leaned down, his lips brushing against Leo's ear. "You don't have to say anything, just trust me." And for the first time in his life, Leo did. As their lips met in a tentative kiss, everything in Leo's world shifted. The weight of his identity, the fear of rejection, the impossible distance between him and Vincent. None of it mattered anymore. For the first time, he felt like he belonged. And maybe, just maybe, Vincent had been waiting for him all along. End of story.